Good evening, everybody. System Chalk here with the 193rd episode of our first YouTube run through the House of Light expansion to Book of Hours, playing as the Archaeologist. We talked a bit about the Great Counterfeit. Forgot to reply to that comment, sorry. But we have a bunch of other books that we need to go through. Again, we're pursuing... I think this has been like a 3-episode day in this game, but again, we're catching up on some of the mistakes that I'd made earlier. We are at the very last minute of... Well, sorry, that's not entirely true. It's like the last minute of action that I can plan out. Everything after this point will effectively cost me an element of the soul for the next day. We're certainly not hurting for those. But let's take a minute here. We will read the various books that we had queued up. We'll see where we're sitting as far as getting the levels. And then for the rest of the summer, we will take care of the, we'll see what our opportunities for lessons are. We'll try and make the most of our time. But my outside option is always to improve the levels of some of the elements of the soul that I'm working with. So first things first, let's read the books that we'd queued up. In the mountains as upon the plain, there may not be a path where none has passed. Naingala of Lagash describes the secrets to be found in mountains. Naingala tells a number of lively stories about riddling ogres and wars between mountain tribes, but turns somber in the tale of the empty-handed hunter, a lover of the Grail who sought to match her appetites and join her as an hour, but in the end rent and devoured himself, giving his name to the mountains he had once roamed. Naingala claims that the Hours, who sometimes manifest as birds, the laughing thrush, the ivory dove, the breech crow, and the witch and sister, meet in a secret location on a mountaintop to exchange gossip unheard by their peers. Now and then a mortal overhears them. The mortal is always obliterated, and the meeting place always changed. So that's a grail for Trades I say Trades Mahaira, but it's actually for orchids and narcotics. Opening the Sky, an unusual recording of Varro's Opening the Sky, composed for the coronation of the new king Henry IX. The record bears the suppression stamp Expunge. The first movement is soft, autumnal. The second, unsettling, febrile. The third is bright, soaring, rapturous. The fourth movement is glassy, slithering, a tintinnabulous icicle rattle. The fifth returns to the theme of the third, bright and rapturous once again, but this is a choral movement. It becomes apparent, though, that these are much, much too pure and high to be human voices. They recall birdsong, they recall the sweep of the windswept sky, blue turning black at the edge of the higher heaven, and they wrench the heart in a direction the Bureau does not permit. And I don't want to spend too much time on this because I know I've talked about this before, but I wanted to compare this to some of the stuff that I said in the previous episode about finding little hooks to follow through on. And the one thing that I didn't really give enough time, or in fact any time to, was the fact that you can actually learn more about the real world if you play these games and jump into the material enough. Now, I want to be a little careful in saying that because I do know that there has been a challenge with... I'm trying to come up with the appropriate way to say this. There have definitely been cases where, let's say, the material has been taken a little too seriously. There used to be sort of I don't know if it's an alternate reality game, but there was sort of like a secret game behind the game for Cultist Simulator. I think it would be fair to call it an ARG. But they did have to shut that down, and part of this was sort of because of there was a level of invasion towards personal life that was not appropriate. And in fact, Weather Factory have gone out and sort of said, if any of this has you looking up people's addresses, you have gone too far. And, again, there are some people who have expressed a bit of concern, is this more than just a game or something like that? And no, these are, this is very well written. This is, a lot of fun, and it's very, very well researched. I think for those of you that haven't heard Skeleton Songs, it is a wonderful chance to just listen to the creators of these games talk about things they're interested in, and you can see that they are very smart. They've got very wide interests, and a lot of that will come into the games that they make, but that that's different from sort of there being some sort of significant like real world lesson that you draw from. You know, it's, I suppose, like any kind of good storytelling or that, there's probably something that you take from it, if not maybe directly into your own life. I mean, I don't know, like I was a lot more introverted as a kid, and then I read The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, and I thought Zaphod Beeblebrox was so outlandish that maybe I could afford to be a little more outgoing, even though I would probably count myself as an introvert, at least in terms of my personal preferences, if not my outward presentation. Now, it's wonderful to be able to fake that you like people or like interacting with people a lot more than you do. But I mean, I say this on a YouTube channel. Let's not kid ourselves that I've gotten over at least some of the shyness. But yeah, so, you know, is it useless to life? Well, no. I mean, obviously we're spending our leisure time, we're spending real money on these games. We clearly get something out of it, but obviously if you're thinking of going to some sort of cultist simulator monastery in a remote part of the world, that is certainly not what Weather Factory wants you to get out of this. But again, there is history that you can learn. There are sometimes some facts that you can learn about the world, or little details that are sort of buried within the game. And in fact, you can see in some of the stuff that's been revealed about traveling at night, it's also just dealing with those little interesting corners of history and maybe asking some of the what if questions and some of the things that make those what ifs, some of those hinges are an interesting place to explore. So with that in mind, one thing I hadn't realized, I just want to talk about this idea of where you find the things to follow through on. So one point here would be, depending on when you get Opening the Sky, you've seen references to the new king, but it hasn't necessarily said the name. Here you have a name, Henry the Ninth, but of course it's when you get to the Cougar bit that you can get the full story in terms of who the new king is and why. So there is something inside the game, but there are a couple of other things that I personally find quite interesting about this. So one, in terms of the real world, and I do still kind of need to think a little bit about this. I do like classical music. I wouldn't consider myself sort of a scholar or, you know, or really anything more than just someone who sort of now has the Apple Classical app on their phone and tablet and will open that up and listen to things. But one composer I quite like, and I think the world really likes, is Arvo Pärt. And I learned that apparently some of his style is called tintinnabuli. So I do know tintinnabulus I took as sort of referring to the icicle rattle, right? That's a word that you can find in the dictionary referring to a particular sound, but it does actually turn out that there's a musical meaning to it as well. And to be honest, I'm still not 100% sure which of these two I should draw from, and I suspect that that double meaning is intentional. So again, that's an example of sort of a real world thing that you can draw from it. In this case, you know, you can like classical music, but not necessarily have heard the term tintinnabulus. So that was an example directly to me to say, okay, you know, this is adding an extra layer to it. But one of the things I've always liked the most about this is that, you know, anyone playing this game today has the benefit of, you know, going out into space and taking actions in space as being borderline commonplace, let's say. You know, so much of the technology that we rely on effectively relies on the fact that there is a set of satellites operating, and that we have a fairly reliable way of maintaining them or, you know, putting new ones up. But of course, that is not true in the time that this game takes place. You know, any kind of space travel, at least as far as the mundane world would be concerned, would be limited to, you know, works of fiction. That, you know, and that could be Lucian, that could be Kepler, you know, that there's a number of different, there's a whole bunch of ways that you can see that. But in this case, the idea of actually traveling to space, I don't think is a serious consideration at the time of this of the story. I also think that has some really interesting implications in terms of the factions that will be set up for traveling at night and why they may want to see a space program. But let's let traveling at night do its own thing, and we'll see how that relates. But so with that in mind, right, the idea of seeing an image of the Earth from space, this is something that is as easy as me doing a quick search online and I'll get it. And, you know, and I kind of can take my pick in terms of images of the heavens. But I would suggest even the idea of flying up so high that you start to see some of this activity. This is really something that you can maybe, certainly no one in, again, the mundane world in this setting could expect to have a first-person perspective of this. And I think it's debatable that even particularly creative scientists would maybe know these particular details that you would see that's being that are being described here. So the fifth returns to the theme of the third, bright and rapturous once again, but this is a choral movement. It becomes apparent, though, that these are much, much too pure and high to be human voices. They recall birdsong. They recall the sweep of the windswept sky, blue turning black at the edge of the higher heaven, and they wrench the heart in a direction the Bureau does not permit. So, you know, we have regular commercial flights. You know, we see lots of portrayals of people either going into space or hitting sort of the limits of it. If you are sufficiently wealthy, you can see that yourself. But the idea here of music that is actually describing the sort of detail that kind of you'd only ever expect to see if you'd been up there, that's always one that really struck me about this particular item. So. Better now. The Berry Book. Thirza Blake, 7th librarian of Hush House, talks about fruit, for no other apparent reason but that it was the kind of thing she did. She talks about fruit in the woven language Kilisimi. Who was it once said fruit is the womb of a plant? It was me. Take a few moments to think on that enripened wisdom. I shall leave a blank space for your moments here in this page. Nectar, children mine, cast my words into a sufficiency of nectar, and watch the Pyrus persimmon burst from wood. Gather more nectar, wring it from the trees and earth, and our persimmon gushes forth the sacrament. You will thank me. Unhatched hymns. Hymns attributed to St. Lucia the Eyeless, patron of glassworkers and name of the hour called Meniscate. The hymns venerate every sanctioned hour, celebrating them as the sun undivided, but also suggesting that each hour may become the next. Madrigad to watchman, watchman to wolf, and so on. The hymn of the phases celebrates the Meniscate from whom we do not turn, for the truth which is beauty, the beauty which is truth, and the perfect balance between the two. The hymn of the reflections, more puzzlingly, celebrates the Meniscate as the sister of Janus, mother of shadows, whose visage wondrous in emptiness can reveal all truths. Again, these were all the sky texts to help out our strings and songs. The Serenity of the Black Wood, an allegorical history of the House of Leith, which it is here implied was inspired by the centipede. Serrano Blackwood is an occult alias to this day. The proverbial footloose gathers travelers in a wood and leads them through, but abandons them part way. They find themselves beset by glorious monsters. The travelers discover they can survive if they close their eyes. They adopt a closed eye as their sign, and that they can go unnoticed if they drink from the clear, cold streams. They never forget the proverbial footloose, the centipede, but they never forgive her either. Damascene traditions of the House of Leith. The House of Leith was an order of immortals who sought obscurity, rejecting their past and future. If the author of this short text is to be believed, the initiates of the Damascene branch were much more radical than their fellows elsewhere. The house generally forbade any potentially procreative activities for fear of the terrible consequences of too long bearing a child. The Damascene order took this much further. At one point, male initiates were required to undergo castration, and female initiates to strangle any children they had previously born. These measures were so horrific that the order was shaken by repeated schisms and eventually absorbed into the local Sisterhood of the Knot as a society of healers and exorcists. Those Who Do Not Sleep, the Mystic Broadnax, discusses the origins of the Sister and Witch and of the Thunderskin. Also, I messed this up. The Sister and Witch were born in two wombs, one poor, one rich, across the sea. The Sister was stronger in the aspect of heart, and so their survival was assured. The Witch was stronger in the aspect of Grail, and so they were not satisfied. When the Sister and Witch came west, the Red Grail permitted their ascension, but then grew jealous of their power. It lured a great musician into the ranks of its names and caused him to be reborn from blood as a heart hour so that the Grail might maintain dominion there also, but its victory is not assured. And the Rose of Hypatia, a volume of collected teachings of the Sisterhood of the Knot, that arcane contemplative order that existed in all histories, but in some was very powerful indeed. This was recorded by Hypatia and dedicated to Saint Nympha. Saint Nympha is described as not born but cultivated, the sentience that became a saint. Hypatia indicates inhabited a sinner's corpse in order to enable that sinner's redemption. Not all dead enter the mansus by the winter door. Not all the dead enter the mansus at all. All right, let me just make sure. I feel like I've probably tripped up. Yes, so the Great Counterfeit should be here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So in 1 second, we'll lock that in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so we've got all the pieces in place. We just need to apply it. Now, we are at the end of the day, so there are a few things that I want to get taken care of. First of all, I should probably prepare another Newman, although I guess the question would be, which of these do I... Okay, as much as I want to, there is a real possibility that if I feel like I have an opportunity to do so, I may just read the Turquoise Hand. So maybe I don't read another book for the simple reason that I may want to I may just want to generate a brand new Newman. I'll do some gardening before I commit to anything else. And I better make sure Orchids and Narcotics doesn't get committed or I will be very mad. Now, before I go too crazy on this, let's make sure... So I've got the Faust and the Arab. I need to make sure that I keep these, otherwise I'm not going to be able to level up the 2 skills. So, of the remaining capabilities... I think the Fett should be able to take us pretty far. Cool. I thought we'd make some progress, but I wasn't expecting to go that far. All right, and then, as always, the question is, what else do I want to do with the day? Wouldn't be a bad idea for me to pick a memory to take with me. So I guess if it's pentiments and precursors, then we come back to that question of, you know, with the Grail and Scale, I would be upgrading Inks of Power. There's actually a lot of Scale stuff that I'd be moving up. So, one of the easiest ways for me to punt would just be to take a Confounding Parable, and I think I'm going to take the opportunity to do that. And then, as always, the question is, what do I do with the remaining elements of the soul? And the answer is nothing. I'm not going to stress out about those. When I thought I'd understood, I'd only begun. Improve this skill to level 7. Now, not all of these are going to be necessary for rearranging my Tree of Wisdoms, but again, I've got the skills right now, so I might as well use them. Actually, one other thing I could have done was maybe drawn up some water, but. And then at some point, actually we can do this now. If I recall correctly, we had it was Eason and Agdistis, I believe, were the two Grunwald provision. Yeah, so we can write some invitations for them. Oh, also, I forgot to feed the Stimpfling. What do we have the most of? Whist. Weather Factory think they do scary games. Satisfy this creature's appetite. Food will make a hungry beast or a wild one cooperative. The skill is now level 7. Its power aspects have also increased. Alright, so last but not least, we have Strings and Songs. Now I'm trying to recall why... Oh right, because Applebright Euphonies and Strings and Songs are both 5. Sorry, I thought it was like, why am I leveling this up when Applebright Euphonies is 5? It's like, because this will eventually become 6, not because this is 6. Now I just need to post it. So I can see us bringing in Agdistis and Eason. Actually, I guess there's nothing stopping me from inviting them right now. We're just going to be talking about the event, so you know, it's not like they're going to get in the way of any of my existing plans. All right, I want to see, excuse me, if I can get clever. I believe we need heart. So how do I get heart in? Well, probably there's a moth in heart. I'm now starting to feel less certain. Yeah. I do not think I have what it takes to get Mr. Fekri here. I could also just use a good old-fashioned, like, pot of ink. It's, you know, it's a little more than I wanted, so. Night has fallen, dawn will come soon. Now I just need to post it. So yeah, you know what? I don't see any reason not to send out these invitations. Stamp, envelope, send. Sorry, I didn't read the line, but I think most of you know what the line is after I've done labor at the Sweet Bones. The postmistress examines the letter and deems it sufficient. It'll go with the next post, she assures me. The Locksmith's Dream, Portions and Proportions, the second volume of Teresa Galmier's examination of parallels in the mystic dreams of artisans. The frontispiece has been slashed with a razor. In this volume, Galmier records fewer dreams and explicates more on her own elaborate theories. We see this again and again. What is below can't escape what is above. The finest artisans all dream of the white door in the end. I'm no artisan, only a scholar. I think there's a secret that all these artisans know, but I think that secret is only half the story. So this goes straight to bed. And then in 2.6 seconds, I don't know if we have enough time to recover the occult scrap, but I'm going to risk it. We'll maybe use the FET for this. I think we'll have enough time. If it's 10 seconds left and we did this a minute in, a full belly makes a helpful friend. Alright, unexpected finds in the folds of earth and sky, sea-strewn salt-snared stuff. Moth orchid is soft as velvet to the touch, except when it changes. Gather the scented blossoms of the fragrant chalice. Carrots, tomatoes, marrows, and blessed onions, all the unsung heroes of the stew pot. Definitely got more of those than I really need. Probably as evidenced by the fact that they're all sitting on the bridge. But winter's coming, so... Well, not exactly. It's summer still, so... Nothing's history when first it happens. Okay. So even though, really, this was sort of an evening almost like we were going to cross over into autumn. In truth, we still have a full day ahead of us, but we're sort of queued up, we're ready to go. Memories fade, assistance departs, but the soul is refreshed. So Eason and Ecdistis should be arriving in a few minutes. And I guess I am no closer to the question of... whether I want to read another book or not. So here's how I'm feeling. I've got about a minute to go, and I know my tendency to babble will keep us... This will almost certainly take us over the half-hour mark. So I'm going to leave it here. What I will do at the start of the next episode, we will see if we can... Actually, the one thing I'll do is order the lessons or the skills if I haven't done... or if I need to. Looks like I already prepared them, actually. Yeah, so what I'll do is I'll see if I can complete the work that we had planned for the Tree of Wisdoms. From there, I think the question will be, what do I want to try and do with the turquoise hand? I can see myself reading that and leveling it up. I just wish that maybe I'd done that overnight so I could have gained a little bit of extra time. But I believe at a level 10 mystery, probably we'll only get 2 pentiments and precursors. And given that Pentiments and Precursors is Grail and Scale, actually, yeah, so by the standards I normally apply, I'd probably do Serpents and Venoms and Resurgences and Emergences, as much as I'd love to level up Pentiments and Precursors. So maybe I can order that around. But yeah, the main idea here is that to level up something with Moon and Scale and Grail and Moth, getting 4 for those memories isn't all that hard. And then maybe what I will do, I could probably open up the remaining containers as well. Clearly, this means I won't be opening up the sealed vault quite yet, but I don't know. It's not that... We're not exactly in a rush on this one. In fact, if anything, being able to level up some of this shaft will give me even more to work with. So yeah, I think that's probably how we're going to handle it. We will start next episode with committing things to the Tree of Wisdoms. Following that, we will probably read the Turquoise Hand. And then while we do that, we'll also talk with Aeson and Ecdistis. I suspect one of them we will try to complete the further story with. But I haven't decided which of those two yet because we don't know what the requests are. So lots to look forward to in the next episode, which will be tomorrow. Thank you very much for watching, and we'll see you in the next one. Take care.